right, testing 1, 2. Somebody let me know if you can hear me okay. Testing 1, 2. Somebody drop a comment. Let me know if you can hear me okay. At least on my end, it appears it's picking it up. First stream in a long time. Just got to make sure that it's going through okay. I don't know if you can remove that one for me. You know, we have a habit after all this time. So, I guess it appears that we're off and running, so let's do this thing. All right. Big day today. National Tight End Day. As you can see, we have one of the guys who's kind of been doing quite a bit here as of recently, Evan Ingram, towards the top. Prop Finder has him graded pretty high for this week for receptions. Let's see what he's talking about. Line set at 3.5. He's hit that. Last 4 in a row. Kind of been coming along for sure. Against the Dallas defense, good lord. Let's take a look at the history here. Bates hit his line of 1. Ertz did not, but they didn't really look that great anyway, for being honest. Jaden Daniels went down with a little bit of an injury, didn't really come back, do much after that. Tremble hit his line. We're not even going to talk about the Jets. Jets are terrible, man. Good lord, what an atrocity they are. Tucker Kraft, man, he's such a hit or miss. Really is. You know, he just gets these either kind of mid between the 20s throws, or he gets a 20-yard touchdown and doesn't really do much after that. What I do know is Dallas defense is... Look at this. What is this? They are super banged up, man. Got their nickel corner out. Donovan Wilson, their main safety, out. Wanya Thomas, out. Josh Butler, other cornerback, out. Lord have mercy. So, see what they do. Tight end 1 averages about 5 receptions a game. I expect that to continue for Evan Ingram here. Prop Finder has him rated pretty high. I can see why they would do that for sure. Obviously, there's no head-to-head data. You know, he's only been with the Broncos for, you know, just this year. He signed with them. I really like him today. We can check his receiving yards. Still pretty good. I do like it. Coverage, obviously they run zone because they literally do not have a single soul that can keep in step with any of them. Let's check what they're doing as far as the actual breakdown of coverages. You know, great tool to use in terms of like, hey, this is what he's had success against, but at the same time, like, you can't match success rate with what he's been good in with what Dallas runs separately. So I was going to try and align the two. They like to run a lot of single high, which I don't know why. All right, doesn't do much against that, but let's be real. I mean, you can't really take these numbers into consideration, considering, you know, one, he was injured for a decent portion at the beginning of the year. You know, he's really just started to kind of ramp it up again. Do like him a lot. Cover 6. I mean, they don't run that a lot. You know, yeah, exactly. 7%. You know, he's had a lot of success against that, but they just can't run that. What you do see here is a whole lot of green, man. And Denver's been a very weird team this year. So, you know, they don't particularly start out very hot. They normally are playing from behind. Bo Nix has, by all measures of the imagination, has not been very good. So he plays a lot of catch up in the end. Mind you, he does play, his fourth quarter, third, late quarter numbers are pretty good. So, there's a lot of room there for them to work. And he's playing at home again, which doesn't necessarily mean a lot. But normally when you want to check Evan Ingram's numbers, you also want to check the quarterback. So let's give him a look. He looks good for his rushing. Line set at 24, I think it's pretty low. I don't like to mess with a lot of quarterback rushing, but when he's playing from behind, he does tend to bail out of the pocket a little bit more than what he normally would. It seems like a lot of quarterbacks are at least hitting relative to that number. At Jaden Daniels 35, he had 35 and got knocked out of the game. So it tells you all you need to know about that. Let's check his passing yards though. That's what you really want to take a look at. The line is 236.5. Best line is showing on FanDuel, because you got to be careful with FanDuel, man. Especially nowadays, they don't, their injury forgiveness. Good lord. So, reasonably high passing line against Dallas, which does bode well for Evan Ingram. So, I like his reception. So, we'll favor that one till the end. See, looking at Warren, Kittle, Goddard, Henry. Now, are we talking about Hunter Henry? That's going to be a big one there. The matchup, I don't think screams great for Hunter Henry, but it is National Tight End Day, and he is at home, and Hunter Henry fucks when he's at home. So, yeah, you take a look. His line's only at 33.5, which is low for him. He's normally in the 40s. But look at this. I mean, he's a home merchant, guys. Come on. And they let up, look at this. Darnell Fat-Ass Washington got 3 receptions for 62 yards. You cannot make this up. I will say, you're not throwing deeper passes to Jonnu Smith down. I mean, he's not that kind of guy. Doesn't have great hands. He's normally a screen guy, yak yardage. Freiermuth, I'm really surprised that he's kind of been put on the big back burner for as long as he has. I mean, he's been great for these past few years. You're more prototypical tight end. Good, good soft hands. But I'm really shocked that he just took a complete backseat up until last week to Jonnu Smith. I mean, that's kind of disrespectful, especially considering. So they run a decent amount of man on Cleveland coverage, and Hunter Henry, believe it or not, between these, hasn't seen a lot of success or even volume this year in man coverage, because most teams nowadays, they don't really have the personnel to run a true man coverage. But Cleveland, they have the pieces, or did have the pieces, where they could run more man coverage than typical teams. You saw 15% for Dallas. So, 34, they definitely run up a little bit more. Zone coverage. Take a look at some of his advanced numbers. Does well in cover 2. He really finds a soft spot. Quarterback friendly. That's what you really look for in a guy like this. Plays better at home. He looks fantastic. Obviously, National Tight End Day. Check the touchdowns. Back-to-back weeks. He's got 3 in 2 weeks. Bodes very well. Connor Hayward. I mean, let's be real. That's a shot in the dark. Hawkinson didn't get one. Normally a pretty good red zone threat. Oliver got one. So you're looking at guys that aren't your typical go-to guys for, red zone looks, but these are where they got their touchdowns, is in the red zone. So, I mean, this almost screams to me, if you're just looking at it, Austin Hooper. And he did, believe it or not, score one last week, as I was looking at that game. I watched it with my brother. Anytime touchdown. The 1 week he got a touchdown. So keep that in mind. But Hunter Henry does look really good today, for at least his yards to me look good. It's pretty low, kind of disrespectful considering what he normally does at home. Big difference. We go 30.5 in his normal to 56. Yeah, big difference. I like his yards, natural yards. Let's take a look at Tyler Warren. Yeah, he dangerous guy, man. I really liked him coming out of Penn State. Can really do it all. I'm not going to call him a Gronkowski. That's way too early for that. But they get a very similar coverage scheme that Dallas runs, about 80% zone, only 17% man here. You don't like anything. They run a lot of cover 3 and 4. So, well. 3 and 4. He does seem to do pretty well in these basic schemes right here. Because, I mean, 3 and 4, it's more like you're just dropping guys back because you believe that, you have enough up front, where you can kind of generate pressure, which Jeffrey Simmons hurt his hamstring. Now he's out. At least he should be. Yep. Simmons out. That's big time for them, which means a lot more time in the pocket for Daniel Jones, he's been reminiscent this year. I mean, good Lord, man. He's been unbelievable. I truly thought he was a lost cause, but next thing you know, he's out here, Tom Bradying on a weekly basis. So, take a look at the guys over here at tight end long versus Tennessee. I mean, it was, 4 for 33. I mean, he's, that's a solid outing considering the volume that he really didn't need anyway because the game kind of got away. That's the one thing you have to worry about in a game like this is the score going to get away from them? In all stretch of the imagination, Tennessee is not. They just haven't been competitive. They haven't. So you got a team like this, Michael Mayer, putting up 5 for 50, from Geno Smith. You got to take into consideration the game was probably pretty close. So, they had the volume there. You got Trey McBride. It's been a weird year for them. Finally catching touchdowns from someone who's not Kyler Murray. I mean, he's been terrible. But, yeah, I mean, you got a lot of these guys consistent in the 30s, 40s, and you got a guy that got 50. But main thing to worry about, and I wouldn't worry too much about this right here in the beginning. Obviously, he didn't hit it because he's a rookie in a completely new offense. So they're not going to lean on a rookie in the very beginning portions of the year. Take a look at this, though. He's been solid. Very good. He's really coming to his own. He is now a firm portion of their scheme that they try and run. They really try to get him the ball, especially early on. Between the 20s is where they really get him going. From what I understand, he's not a huge red zone threat. They really like to, utilize, first and foremost, Jonathan Taylor, who has been spectacular in this offense. Daniel Jones, a threat to run. He's looked much better this year, especially early on. So you have no choice but to respect those two. Michael Pittman, he's a big red zone threat. So, I mean, they've got plenty of weapons. That's the one thing you worry about. But big narrative, National Tight End Day, come on. But big story here is, I really have enjoyed the fact that, Daniel Jones has come into one of his own. He really proved a lot of people wrong, including myself, man. He looked terrible. Just the scheme wasn't for him. He's in a, really negative coaching staff, arena, especially with Dable. He's such a child. So I'm glad it worked out for him. Let's take a look at Kittle. The mayor of National Tight End Day itself. Well, he looks really, really red for some reason. Let's dive into that. Okay, so, he's had a few weeks, hasn't done much. He quite literally tore his hamstring. Tore, not pulled. So let's keep that in mind. Houston, by all stretch of the imagination, they have been atrocious on offense, but have held up very well on defense. Very well. Yep, they don't allow much, and we're talking to tight ends total. Don't allow much. Arroyo, and this guy, he's very athletic. So people sleep on this duo right here, but he's a very athletic guy. So I'm not too concerned about what this says right here, because, I mean, let's take a look at who they actually faced, okay? So Isaiah Likely, this is the Cooper Rush right here. We don't worry about that, okay? Cooper Rush, it's a backup quarterback, didn't have his main guy. Leave that alone. Gunnar Helm and Chig Okonkwo, those aren't even real tight ends. They're not real. You could probably put me in there to get a 1 for 12. So let's let's stop at. Brenton Strange, he's legit. I like him a lot. I thought he was, really slept on last year. He's not some insane talent, but he's very solid at what he does. Good receiving tight end, good hands. Runs routes pretty well. Decent yak on him too. So really what you want to look for is the athletic type to, actually do something that can kind of push it down the field a little bit, which is definitely fits the bill for Brenton Strange and Elijah Arroyo. AJ Barner, he's more your typical tight end, like your inline, can kind of go out on a little 5-yard out, maybe rush it, take it up the field a little bit, and that's it. He doesn't really have any shape to him. But when you break this down, to tight end 1, 2 catches for 20 yards a game. But like I said, you can't look too far into that. Who's throwing the ball? Cam Ward, stop it. Cooper Rush, no. This is what you really kind of got to look at. Like, yes, is he the tight end 2, but I wouldn't look too much into that because he is more of your receiving threat than AJ Barner is, even though he's listed as tight end 1. You kind of got to dig a little deeper in, why does it only say 2 for 20? So, just things to consider whenever you look at, but he's not been very good to the, the tight end 1. They've been really stingy. Yeah, well, look at the receipts here. Kittle, always a threat to score. No matter who he's playing, always a threat. He's played 2 games this year. He didn't receive a single, and I cannot make this up, a single catch last week. Weird week coming back from him, tore his hamstring. So really kind of getting back into it. He only saw, a couple targets. So I'm not too worried about that at all. He'll come back and bounce back against the Texans, who've been miserable. Big thing against the Texans, they don't possess the ball very long. They're bottom 5 in the league to possession of the football. Just because they can't do much on offense. So what are they going to do? Inevitably give it back to the 49ers. 49ers, they've been very good this year in picking apart zone-heavy schemes. So it's right here. Big zone-heavy scheme. They can't run man. All they have is Derek Stingley. There's nobody else that can cover anybody. And I can guarantee you, Derek Stingley's not going to be on George friggin' Kittle. So they haven't received a... This is the only thing that's concerning. And Davis Allen, who's that? Higbee hurt himself early on, so he wasn't even really present. Wow, they haven't allowed a single touchdown to a real tight end. Like I said, look at the quarterback history. You've got the Jags. Trevor Lawrence has been terrible by just about every stretch of the imagination, besides some heroics with his feet, not his arm, in that primetime game a few weeks ago. Cam Ward, not been good, but it's just been terrible all around. He's not really surrounded by anybody that knows what they're doing. The coaching staff is stupid. This is you got a good pair of tight ends here between Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, but you can't do much when you don't have your main guy throwing you the ball. And Sam in the red zone, he doesn't really look for tight ends. He loves his wide receivers. And normally when they make it towards the goal line, it is the Zach Charbonnet show. So if you don't have guys that you're absolutely scheming to get the ball, not really going to matter. But George Kittle, always a threat to score. And I really do think that, especially after last week, no receptions and just a couple targets, he's going to get some looks this week. Definitely going to see some love from me. Now, one I did know of right off the rip, no, not Kittle, is Mr. Dallas Goedert. He had a huge game, I know, against the Giants. Now, keep in mind, this was in New York, or New Jersey, whatever. But, I mean, considering how bad Jalen Hurts has been, or extremely inconsistent, you gotta love this. Big time. This is big time right here. This shows you it can be done. It was done recently, just a few weeks ago. And they're gonna be back home. After a pretty big week where they really got, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown going. And speaking of A.J. Brown, he will not be playing. Hurt his hamstring, allegedly. I know they're saying they don't want to trade him. It's going to be too big of a cap hit, but yeah, they're hurting pretty bad in terms of, reliable guys. So now your wide receiver 1 is Devontae Smith. Number 2 goes to Jahan Dotson. Goddard's going to have to be a big part of this. I really like his 50-plus yards. I know you're eating just a little bit of juice, but I really like the 50-plus or 49 and a half, whatever. I do like this. Obviously, you know, I wouldn't look too much into this. The big thing here is that they run a lot of man. They think they can run a lot of man, and they are one of the worst defenses in the league. They have a pretty strong front, though. I will say, pretty strong front. You know, when you got Dexter Lawrence, you know, Thibodeau, you know, and don't get me wrong, they're not game wreckers, but I mean, they cause a lot of havoc. You know, Brian Burns, he'll play. Adebo, that's one of their better listed corners. He's a starting corner. So Javon Holland, he's out. Whew. So safety normally comes down to play on your tight end, especially, you know, when you begin to spread things out a little bit. Javon Holland not being in, he can cover. He's pretty good. So that's pretty big for Goddard. You know, I wouldn't worry too much about, you know, home and away splits like that. You know, I wouldn't worry too much about that. You got to look at the matchup in front of you. And Goddard is not catching, you know, huge passes down the field like that. He normally it's the 10 to 20 range. When he does get down the field, you know, he's normally coming across in this, you know, slant concept. They allow a lot. This is very, very green. A lot of 10 plus, which is really where he thrives. When you go to break down his coverage, you know, what do they run the most of? All right, they like a lot of 1 high and 2 high. So 1 high, pretty good, average yards, and run a lot of cover 2. He's pretty good, average yards here. So he sees a lot of targets in this range right here, which is exactly what they run against. And, you know, Prop Finder, you know, obviously doesn't love him to this number because the home splits haven't been very good specifically. And do I like him to score? Yeah, I like him to score. You know, like he's been pretty consistent so far. You know, Minnesota, they're very stingy to the tight end. You know, that's the one big thing, and he's already done it before. And now they've got even less help than they did when he played them last. So arguably, I like his receiving yards at 50 better than I do his, hard to say actually. I'm not too worried about this. You know, I'm looking at where they are right now. I like them both. I do like them both. Yeah. Got to figure they got less personnel to guard him than what they did in their first matchup. So, doesn't even make sense not to. And yeah, so I do like that. You know, obviously, Prop Finder's got its own version of their grading, you know, which is fine. But I don't take too much stock into how they grade some things. It can be a little bit skewed. You know, like a 92 grade for a single reception. You know, he doesn't see a lot of volume right here, and there's, you know, in a lot of the books, they're not going to push a 0.5 reception unless you can find it in like a DFS app or something like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. A couple matchups that aren't being talked about that, you know, I really want to touch on is, you know, my New England Patriots. You know, I hate to slander them, man, but we're terrible at a tight end. And Njoku, he's going to be listed as questionable. Harold Fannin, got to pivot to this guy, right? We give up a tremendous amount since the beginning of time. Tremendous amount. It's the one area that we really lack in. I mean, we gave up 42 on 5 receptions to Tommy Tremble. A bona fide tight end 1 to Dalton Kincaid gave up 108. Those were legit yards. You know, those were not this, you know, him taking it. No, he's catching down the field every time. Juwan, he really let me down. We went to New Orleans playing indoors. You know, they went to work on the wide receivers, which was surprising to me. Gunnar Helm, you know, he actually did surprisingly well. But this just goes to show you, you know, when you have a nobody that's putting up these kind of numbers between, you know, number 1 right here, number 1 right here, that's a problem. And Harold Fannin, he is legit. Like, he runs like he's got a trailer hitched to them, but he's got good hands, and once he gets going, I mean, he can rumble. And these past few weeks with, you know, obviously Pittsburgh, they're terrible. So we're going to talk about Kraft here in a little bit. But Dylan Gabriel, he looks to his interior receiver guys. He doesn't push a lot of the balls, outside the numbers. So I really like him, especially for yards. Touchdown, I don't know if I trust Dylan Gabriel that much yet. But receiving yards, I'd push him to 40, man. I'd take that at plus money. Yeah, plus 135. Feels pretty good to me, especially considering that, Gunnar Helm, he almost hit that number. Kincaid smashed that number. Chico Conquo, he's not a real tight end. He's just he reminds me of like a Jonnu Smith. Can't catch the ball down the field. He was running routes. I mean, yeah, he had a pretty nice reception. I mean, when you really match this up right here against, this guy who's been consistent with Dylan Gabriel so far, good rapport. And oh my goodness gracious, man. We are atrocious to, intermediate. That's what you see here, intermediate. We do not allow a lot of downfield anything. Not a lot of explosive plays at all. 7%, that's elite. These right here, that's what you really got to worry about, is a lot of intermediate. And, I mean, this is no accident. 7 for 81, and then 4 for 36, which is 5 and 10 targets. He's going to see some work today. I do not think, because he's on the trade block, so I don't think that he's going to see a lot of volume if he even plays at all. So I would just keep that in mind. You show the advance, we can afford to run a lot of the, single and cover 2. He's pretty good because a lot of targets over here. So it would not surprise me at all if he gets targeted quite a bit, because we do not allow a lot over the top. We've got 2 very good man coverage receivers in Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. So I think that, this is big time right here, big time. And we run a lot of it. So I really like Harold Fannin for this one. Gonna take his plus money for sure. Another big guy that I know. Oh, speaking of Kincaid, you got to check on him. Prop Finder does like him. I mean, my goodness gracious, he didn't play the other week. Gabe Davis still out. They signed him. I mean, he looked like he ate their last tight end. So I'm not worried about him. Milano. But some of these guys, I'm pointing out guys on defense, which it speaks to, are they going to receive, the ball? Like, are they going to have a lot of time of possession? That's what you got to look at. And, this right here, I wouldn't put too much stock into this. This game right here was completely uncompetitive. I mean, they were just awful. Justin Fields, he needs to just become a running back because he just can't do it. So, you see a lot of success here, a lot of green. You can't just look at the green. You got to look at the numbers. So, what's the average we're looking at here? 24, 39, 78. All right, who's that coming from? Both the tight ends hit their numbers between Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper. Darren Waller came out of retirement from being a rapper and put up 78 yards, had a touchdown. Julian Hill, nobody even knows who you are, and he got 4 receptions for 22 yards. Jake Ferguson, this game, I wouldn't worry too much about this one because they really exploited the matchup on the outside. I mean, George Pickens went absolutely bonkers. I mean, there was no more room for him. He didn't really have to do anything. Who do the Bills have on the outside? They don't have a George Pickens. They have a Keon Coleman. He's the Make-A-Wish Foundation for a receiver like George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. So this was the game where George Pickens went off for like 200 yards. So he took all the volume. Wouldn't worry too much about this. Yeah, this right here, I mean, he even put up 30 yards on 3 receptions from, limp dick Justin Fields. So let's take a look at the advanced coverages here. What do they run a lot of? Like most teams, a lot of single high, a lot of cover 2. All right, he gets a lot of yards when they run this. This is concerning in cover 2. When you take a look at this, doesn't receive anywhere near the volume in cover 2. And they run nearly that half the time, for Carolina. But I do think that they're going to find him a way, to get him the ball. Because, I mean, they got Dawson Knox. I mean, he's not, he's a headbanger, man. He just kind of gets up, gets a big catch and, barrels through somebody, makes a little highlight, and then you don't see him again. But receptions, I do like his receptions today. I do like him to get catches. But I think with him, he's more your guy to push down the field. I don't know if I like him nearly as much to, be up here like in the 50 range. But, because like I said, he is coming off of an injury. But definitely something to consider against Carolina, where they run mostly cover one, because they have the pieces where they can run, with J.C. Horn, where they can run, him on his own island. But then they don't really have anyone other than that. So I think that what about old Ted McMillan here? This is just a little side note. 50 yards, 54.5 for rushing and receiving. He doesn't really get any rushes like that. Yeah, exactly. Wowza. Diggs went insane. I loved every second of that. Drake London. Wow. I guess he was the only wide receiver that played a game that day. Yeah, you got your big deep threat here. He's more of your traditional wide receiver. Can kind of run every route. He's just a big, cutting across the field deep threat. Kayshawn, he's really kind of come into his own. DeMario, I mean, he's been an afterthought. I mean, nobody really worries about him anymore. Yeah, I mean, these guys don't even exist. So, pretty good numbers, especially considering that Ted is a man. Definitely a man guy. Yeah, most of his production comes off a man. Big time. He loves being alone. 6'5" frame. Big guy. Can really get up there and get it. Nothing's really out of his range. This is the biggest concerning factor right here. This and the fact that his quarterback's name is Bryce Young. But the big thing you have to worry about this is, one, are they going to possess the ball a lot? Reasonable amount. And I think the Bills, they're struggling a little bit right now. They have not been good by any stretch of the imagination at all. So you got to take that into consideration, along with, do we think that the game is going to be high scoring? No, I don't. Which then, do we think there's going to be a lot of volume? Yes, possibly. I think that if Buffalo, actually shows up, I think that Carolina will be chasing their tails early on, and there's a good opportunity for volume here. So I'd probably lean more towards receptions than anything else. Because I don't trust. Like I said, I don't trust Bryce Young. I know this is a very low rating right here, but I can see them really trying to push the envelope to try to get Ted the ball. So I'm not going to take him today, but this is just an example. Because when you take a look, there's good history here. A lot of these guys, like they're bona fides, they still get the ball. Kayshon Bouttie's listed as a number one, but he's not. Just Stephon Diggs. The way Prop Finder breaks it down is their wide receiver one. It's based specifically off where they normally line up, which is they have Kayshawn lining up at the X or wide receiver one. They got him lining up at Z or wide receiver 3, which is mostly from the slot. Traditional wide receiver positional lineups is how they rank that. Because Stephon Diggs is obviously not your wide receiver 3 in that offense. They got Drake London, who is their bona fide number 1, listed as their number 2 because they just move him around so much. I think what they would have had Darnell Mooney listed as their X guy. So that's why sometimes you got to look a little deeper than, this team is not as good against wide receiver 2. It's like, okay, well, who is Prop Finder saying is wide receiver 2? That's just something if you guys are using, this app specifically, you just got to take a little deeper look into that. But yeah, those are the guys I really like early on for those games. Like I said, I'm going to touch back on Sunday Night Football because this guy right here just always seems to have a nose for the end zone. Yep, Prop Finder does like him to score. He scored in over half the games he's played in this year. So he's 4 to 6. Definitely a man coverage guy. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, he just loves to body people. He's kind of a bowling ball, you know, in the way of, you know, he's not going to put a move on you, but he's deceptively fast. So 4 receptions, about 41 yards. That's pretty solid. They give up touchdowns to tight ends. They absolutely do. This right here, wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, this is Dylan Gabriel territory here. You know, and they've just been completely incompetent. I wouldn't worry about, you know, like I said, I like Fannin for his yards, for the rapport he's built with Gabriel, but I do not like him for a touchdown. If he gets a touchdown, hey, hooray, you know, good for you. But I'm not going to place my currency, you know, on a big ticket where I'm relying on Dylan Gabriel to find Harold Fannin. And watch, he's probably going to score for 2 today. Hunter Henry, bona fide guy. Like I said earlier, tight end friendly, easy to find, great hands, good against man coverage. Austin Hooper, deceptively good. You know, he's on the, you know, down portion of his career where, you know, he's just a solid inline guy, can still go catch a couple balls a game. AJ Barner, your more traditional tight end as well. You know, he went and got himself one. So pretty consistent. You know, and Noah Fant, he's not a scrub by any means. They just didn't really see a fit for him anymore in Denver or, you know, when they traded him away originally from Seattle. But he's not a bum by any stretch of the imagination. He can play. So Pittsburgh defense, they're not very good. You know, as in total, they're not good against the tight end. They allow 6 receptions for 67 yards a game, which is a lot. Definitely a lot. Let's check his receiving yards. It's ranked the same exact thing as his touchdown. I mean, look, they just eat them alive. I mean, they've got nobody who can cover them. And why is that? Can't even say defensive, you know, injuries. They just suck. So that's a big thing to look at. It's not just tight end 1, tight end 2, but tight end 1, 3 for 40. Well, close, 4 for 40. So good intermediate. And then 2 for 26 apparently ranks high for, you know, for them, I guess. Yeah, you look at these guys right here, you know, Noah Fant, 4 for 44, that's very efficient. You know, even Njoku, when he was hurt, 3 for 28, ain't bad. Fannin, like I said, good rapport with Gabriel, 7 for 81. Hawkinson, he hasn't seen a lot of volume because they just haven't looked his way for some reason. Hunter Henry, extremely competent guy, 8 for 90. I mean, these guys are smashing their lines. So I really do like, and yeah, you know they always push the envelope here, so you can always just take this down, 50 plus. But I like his tight end, man. He is just scoring at an unprecedented rate. You got Aaron Rodgers, you know, returning, or take it back, reverse. You got Jordan Love coming into Pittsburgh to face Aaron Rodgers, you know, revenge game, old team. So there's going to be that stigma around that game, which they haven't really marketed like that for some reason. That's kind of weird. But yeah, I really do like him tonight. And Sunday Night Football. I really like Freiermuth, yeah, because Green Bay's been terrible too. Like, they've been terrible to tight ends. I mean, look, everybody is mashing their reception line against them. They just can't cover it for some reason. Don't know why. Oh my goodness gracious, man. But here's the one finicky thing about, you know, what are they doing with their, you know, Freiermuth had a big week last week. He had 5 receptions, 111 yards. He's not going to do that again. No. There was a busted coverage, and he broke free. So that ain't going to happen. You know, that's just weird. Let me see here. They just use their tight ends so weird, and just because it's Arthur Smith, he finds a way to where he's just, you know, it's like he goes and checks the lines originally before the game. It's like, okay, got to make sure this guy doesn't hit his line here. Got to make sure this guy, you know, okay, I'm gonna keep him under on here. You know, he's terrible. Lighting sucks. Let me see if I can turn the light on. Yeah, it should be better. Banana pudding? Of course. Oh, of course I want banana pudding. Healthy? I don't know about that. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, getting back to old Pat here. I do like Pat tonight. Receiving yards, I mean, like I said, he has been grossly mismanaged by Arthur Smith. They like to throw in, I don't know why he likes Jonnu so much, man. I mean, he's a gadget guy. You know, he's a big yak guy. Big yak guy. So, I mean, this is what you want from your big yak guy? Who's throwing the ball? Aaron Rodgers. Who does he like? He likes DK Metcalf. Yeah. Ooh, thank you. I'm so excited. It's excellent. This thing fucks for sure. It's like a Honda Odyssey, dude. It fucks for sure. Dude, so reliable. Very reliable. Honda anything. Extremely reliable. Great warranties, too. That's where we got Anna's CRV from. We got her the hybrid. Because Arthur Smith doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Steven, I'm here to tell you right now. He don't care. He don't care. But I will tell you this. That the only reason that he has a job in the NFL, the only reason, is because his father is the main holder of FedEx. I mean, a preschooler could quite literally out-scheme him on paper. It's insane. A preschooler. I've never seen just you do not maximize in any way, you know, your main stars. Like, let's just take a look this year. All right, who's their main star? DK Metcalf. Okay. Looks good on paper for a touchdown, according to Prop Finder. Take a look. Receiving yards, right? Everybody here. When you have DK Metcalf, what is he known for, right? He's known for deep threats. You know, taking a big reception and turning it into a long one. You know, he's your guy. 4.33 speed, right? All right. Then why is his number at 54.5? Why? Why? No, I will say in general that Green Bay has been very good in their scheme against wide receivers. 4 for 48, that's pretty good when you hold a guy down then. Especially considering when they got rid of Jair Alexander. He was a big portion of what they wanted to run there. Looks like he's been on every Chris Hansen show ever. Dude, that stash has got to go. I mean, gotta do something with the stash. Gotta lose a little bit of weight. You know, gotta at least, like, look the part. Like, come on. So, glad we could go over some of that. You know, just in general for some tight end there. You know, hopefully it got you guys some, you know, good looks for, you know, tight ends specifically. So let's take a look at. I know he doesn't look at DK like that. He does give him his looks, though. I will say, he does give him, you know, looks in the game, but he kind of forces it. You know, he doesn't allow it naturally to happen throughout the progression of the game, and that's a big in part to they don't have a really great ground game. So when you don't have a great ground game, you know, you can't run like a true play action. They play you differently. They play you more passively. So it's kind of tough to run it that way. Let's take a look at some of the guys I like. All right. Cale Makar at the top of the list. I wonder why that is. All right, got points in 3 straight. Obviously a defenseman. The greatest defenseman I have ever seen in my life. And VIP final boss, a.k.a. Josh, would 1,000,000% agree. We love Cale Makar. All right, and why is he loved today? Well, first and foremost, he's coming off of a loss yesterday to the Boston Bruins. So, Kyle, man, appreciate you subscribing. Hopefully you learned a little something today. All right, so he is going to be away. His number is at 0.5, which for Kale, it'll kind of go back and forth. Obviously, he's a defenseman. Damn. Okay, so he's been pretty good on the road this year. Check his home numbers just for shits. Damn, he's been terrible at home. Weird. Away. So last year, he was okay. Okay on the road and good at home. This year, I mean, wow. Big change. That I cannot really explain why unless it's home, Utah. Vamelka, very good goalie. Very good. Yeah, put some respect on his name. I know they abuse that dude, but I mean, it works. You know, Carolina, he did get a point. We took him in our same game parlay that missed by a single Ehlers shot that got stat corrected off of a power play. Anyway, always like Kale. Now, big thing is they played yesterday. How does he look on back-to-backs? Holy shit. Looks pretty good. What about on the road? All right. So, apparently, on the road, this guy fucks. So, got to take a look into that. You know, this is why I really love about filters is it kind of gives you, you know, a nice picture of like, hey, you know, this is just kind of a trend. It's not the tell-all be-all. Never take that fully into consideration. Tell-all be-all, who are they actually facing? You know, you got to take more than that into consideration. You can't just look on paper and just be like, oh, yeah, like this guy. But look who he's playing. The Blue Jackets, and keep in mind, this is all from last year because they haven't done that this year. They just started. The Blue Jackets, terrible defense, probably against Elvis. Ottawa, terrible. St. Louis, they've always had a reasonable defense, so I can see why he only got one. Edmonton, terrible goaltending. But their defense, I will say, is pretty good. Their defense overall as a whole, they don't allow a ton of goals. You know, between Stuart Skinner and, you know, Pickard, they allow about 3 goals a game. And then you got New York Rangers, who have been terrible. It's probably against Jonathan Quick. And Anaheim Ducks, who were not even relevant. And against, look at this. In New Jersey, ding, 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 he didn't get any. So, you got to take more than that into consideration. But if you just look at the trend, he's been pretty good. Sunday, all right, they don't have a Sunday filter. I don't even know why they even put that in there then. So, overall, he's hit 3 in a row for at least one. He did miss against Boston. Head-to-head, at home, he had 2 last year. Missed on the road. He's back on the road again. Both teams on a back-to-back because New Jersey, they played the Sharks. And, I mean, I take it back. They are not on a back-to-back. New Jersey is not. New Jersey played the Sharks 2 days ago. So they're a little more fresh. They're staying at home because they played the Sharks at home. Let's take a look here. They don't really have anybody worth a fuck other than, you know, Markstrom's their main goalie. He was terrible to start the year anyway. I think that was a fake injury. I mean, he was terrible. He got pieced up to start the year. So, sometimes guys will do that. Like Aiden Hill, he was getting pieced up. The Vegas Golden Knights goalie, he was terrible. Then all of a sudden, my groin. Yeah, K-Pal. No, he needed to reconvene, find himself again. They do that. All right, why is Celebrini so high? Well, woohoo! The other day, against the statistically best goalie in the game, he put up 5. This game went to overtime, and they won. So, insane. He even put up a point in New Jersey. It was on the power play. He assisted William Eklund on that one. I was so upset that Will Smith didn't get a point that game. So, against Minnesota, and keep in mind, Minnesota is on a back-to-back, starting a rookie goalie this week. He has had quite the history against them. Now, he's on the road, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about, you know, NHL, is when you're at home, your top line and top power play receive a significant boost in the way of home team will always get final change. What does final change mean? It means that you, at any point, can choose to match up your best guys against arguably their worst line, the team that's coming in to face you, that's on the road. So you really have a true control of the matchup and really the pace of the game. So you try and get your top guys the best look. Who's the top line? The Sharks change it a lot. Normally it's Macklin, Will Smith, his best friend, and William Eklund. But let's take a look. Sharks. Oh, look at that. They switched him. It's no longer Eklund on the top line. Now it's Toffoli. All right. Defensive pairings. You got Orlov, who's in Carolina last year. Pretty good. And Liljegren. Who's their top power play unit? This right here. And now this is very important when you're looking in the big picture overall. Is how much time they receive on ice. Is how many penalty minutes are given up by the opposing team, and how long does the first power play unit spend on the ice compared to the second. Because you got teams like Edmonton who will run their first power play unit into the ground, and then the second power play unit, while it looks good on paper, like, oh, they're on a power play, they'll quite literally receive like 20 seconds out of the 2 minutes of ice time. You know, that's just when they're absolutely dog exhausted from the first power play unit. So, stuff to keep in mind that way. Now, they have been terrible. Like I said, Minnesota is starting a rookie in the net today. They're playing in a back-to-back. They're still at home. So you have that. Who's out today? He's actually been surprisingly good, Shakir. But not detrimental to what they run. Zuccarello, he's a big miss for them. He's been out since the beginning of the year anyway, so nothing really changes. But him, big difference maker if he was in. So head to head, looks good, man. He's playing on the road. On the road, he has been dicking. Okay, so pretty good on the road. All right, and I would use the Sunday filter if it actually worked, but that's okay. Excuse me. I like him today. I like him. And normally with guys like this, when I try and find value, I'll take a look at Will Smith. Because why? We saw that Will Smith was not super highly rated, you know, and he's been a lot more prone to miss. Sees a little bit more action on the road than at home because he just started playing on the top line with Macklin here relatively recently, you know, like towards the end of last year, and then last game in particular, you know, 4 points. God, that's crazy. You know, 4 points, and that's ridiculous. So got Will Smith here. Always take a look. You know, he plays in the same vicinity as Macklin. Macklin is, he's their guy. So I always want to keep that in mind. He's the starting goalies. All right, let's go ahead and refresh the page. Yikes. So Trent Miner. I mean, he might as well be an AHL goalie. He's not good. Let's take a look. Avalanche, Trent Miner. Goal save above expected. Okay. Pretty good. And Wedgwood, don't get me wrong, he finally blew up last game, but he's not been bad all year. He's been very serviceable for them. I wouldn't even worry too much about that. Trent Miner last year, this is about what you're looking at. For the entirety of this season, he had negative goals saved for expected. As in, if he was expected to save the puck from scoring, he is in the negative. As in, he could not even fulfill his baseline duty as to what was expected. That's rough. Take a look last time. Stayed the exact same. But he only played 2 games. And he wasn't very good. So, I will say, he did come in last game, and he did well. You know, a couple scored against them, but he did do well unblocked shot. So, I mean, as long as he had a clear look, did he save it? Yes, he did. Save percentage on shots on goal, as in, ooh. This right here is a big indicator right here. Goals allowed above expected. That's rough. That's rough. So they're starting Trent Miner, which it's not confirmed. You always want to wait for the confirmed. So not yet. They could put Wedgwood back in there. We'll see. Carl Lindbaum, another rookie starting today for the Vegas Golden Knights. That's something to take a look at. Vasilevsky, he's been terrible. Absolutely terrible. I have no idea what's wrong with him, but he's got to find himself. Because, I mean, that Tampa Bay team is more or less the same as it was last year. And it just hasn't looked good. This one is the one I'm looking at. This one right here. The Jets do not have a high-powered offense by any means, but they have one of my favorite top lines I've ever seen. And that includes Mark Scheifele as the center, Kyle Connor as the left wing, and Gabe Vilardi as the right wing. That top line at home fucks. So, take a look. There's no way he's not. Look at this. Top rated. Ridiculous. He's missed once in the last 10 games. Let's miss 4 times in the last 20 games. Obviously, this is why you get a guy who's, you know, the line is so saturated, you know, with probably what, minus what, 230? Yeah, 230. Which, by all means, I mean, you would think against a team on a back-to-back in Utah, playing a backup goalie in Vanacek, you know, they're on the road as well. You would think that his line would be more closer to, like, minus 280. But it's not. That's pretty good value. I can assure you, Mark Scheifele will be in a slip today. Love Mark Scheifele. Donato. This is a name you guys probably don't see a lot because he's a Chicago Blackhawk. And everybody thinks, oh, Chicago sucks and, you know, they're never going to be anything. They only score a few times a game. Enough of that nonsense. They are a rejuvenated team. They look spectacular so far. And the line is beginning to find themselves. Oh, my God. Oh, I knew he'd been nice, but, I mean, he's only missed the beginning portions of the year. All right. Who did Donato play with? Let's take a look here. Donato, I don't know what's going on here. It's the third line anyway, so it doesn't matter. He's playing with Frank Nazar and Teuvo Teravainen. So this line has been red hot. Red hot. He was in Carolina a couple years ago. Excellent player. Excellent player. Was on the power play one, you know, back when they actually used to be worth something. Extremely well, valuable player. Great passer of the puck. You got Frank Nazar. He has been excellent. The true center and driving force of this line that no one could have imagined was going to be even possible. Because most of your top 6 is who sees the ice time the most. These guys just take up time so these guys can catch their breath. That's quite literally how it works. And if you can get production from these guys, that's great. You know, obviously he's their team captain. And these guys just try and set the tone. They play tough. You know, want to keep time of possession, do their best, you know, to score. You know, it's not just skating around doing cardio out there. But, you know, these are your guys. Your top 6 are always your guys. And Donato, you know, playing as a winger next to Nazar. And look at that. Donato, power play 1, right next to Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar. This is what you want right here. Got these guys grouped together. You know, obviously they group them based off of their handedness of how they hold their stick. So this right here, big time. A lot of value here. You look at Donato. What is he right now? He's plus money for a point. Plus money. So, you know, you're getting a team who just played last night in the Kings, played a overtime one. Yeah. Look at that. He's got good history against them too. You know, at home, he scored 2. Like I said, remember it head to head. It's not the tell all be all, but it's a good little history point to make sure, as long as most of the guys are on the team are the same. And LA by every stretch of the imagination and metrics, have completely fell off the map from where they used to be. They were the stingiest team last year to shots allowed. And now look at that. They ranked top 5 worst overall to the center position in shots. They were the best shot suppression team. The best. Now in general, they're barely middle of the pack. Power play, my goodness. They are the worst in power play goals given up and assists given up in general to all positions. So they're essentially giving one up a game, and even shorthanded, even shorthanded, they've given up a few. This right here, even strength, this is what you really, really need to look at, is they're not winning their face-offs anymore. That's partly because, Anze Kopitar, he was hurt for a little while. He's one of the best face-off guys in the league. I mean, and they're giving up 2 even strength goals a game. On top of your even strength goal, then you're giving up a power play goal. I mean, what can you even do about that? I mean, they've just been terrible on defense. And they played yesterday, hard game. They gave up 4. Now they're playing their backup goalie today, on the road. So, to me, smash spot here for Donato. I'm taking Donato. He's going to be obviously plus money. And it still is Chicago where they can, like anything, they can still be a little inconsistent. But I'm taking them. VGK got shut out yesterday. Shut out. Nobody put up a point. There was no... And that's entail to this guy. Mark Stone, what's the big situation on him? He's hurt every single year. Every year. Long-term IR. So, him not being there makes a big difference. Big difference. So, I'm a little less likely to play VGK today. I mean, they could explode. I don't know. But, they quite literally just got shut out yesterday. So I'm not exactly, itching to go play them again. Now, we didn't take any VGK yesterday just because it was a weird day yesterday for me. There was it was softball all day. No service at the field. I only had 1 meal. So it just wasn't a good time. I picked the guys that I liked, and we hit half the stacks that I put out. I really don't want to mess with against Nashville. I know they just played yesterday, but he's been kind of... We started out so hot. We got him this day, him and Mark Stone, where we hit our big ladder on that day. But it's been tough. It's been tough because Matt Duchene is a big driving force to their second line. And since he's not been there, it's been a completely different team. And I don't feel comfortable running, anybody other than, Mikko for something who's involved in quite literally every aspect of the game. But what's the big thing about Mikko? You can't get any value on any of his props. So it's tough. Unless you run him in a trio that you really like, you can't really do much with that. So that's just something to consider here. Is Matt Duchene not being there has really impacted, how these guys score. I mean, you look at these guys, St. Louis, they haven't been very good. They've been getting blown out by teams left and right. CBJ, they've been better. But, I mean, you can't get a point against CBJ, who averages 3.5 goals given up a game. And LA, you can only get 1, and they average 4 goals a game given up. And then Carolina's very good. So let's not pretend that they're not good. They're going to be a very top contender with VGK for who's going to win in that arena. But, I mean, it's just the product hasn't been very good. And, you take a look. I just don't feel comfortable playing anything until, Duchene settles back in. And, by the way, definitely taking Macklin here. Yeah, this team's been very weird. I mean, look at the injury report here. And these are all starting guys for them. Obviously, Quinn Hughes, he's a guy that can do it all. But you don't really want to play him, with a team where he's not working with anything. I mean, look at this. I mean, these are all starting guys that are supposed to be there, and they're not there. So, I mean, you look at all here, they give up 3 goals a game. That's about, league average. And, 4.8 assists. But, I mean, this is not an average team, they're just missing way too much here. And so that's why we're going to hold off on, Vancouver props for a while, until everybody gets back. And, you look here and, compared to Robertson, and he's the center of that line right now with Robertson. But what do you notice here? Most of his production is, I guarantee you, probably coming off of what? The power play. So they're having a hard time generating anything 5v5. It's strictly all just power play stuff. And, I don't really feel comfortable, just relying on the power play. They allow what? All. They don't even allow a power play goal per game. Nashville last year was the #1 penalty kill in the league. So when most of your production is coming off of the power play to a team that, gives up more 5v5 and nothing on the power play, that's not exactly what I would want to challenge. So probably I'm going to stay away from Dallas today. Not touching the Mammoth guys. They're going against Connor Hellebuck, who is the best, and I do mean the best goalie in hockey when he is at home. So not going to mess around with him. Not a chance. Yeah, we're not taking any New York Rangers. They are banned. They are awful. But take a look here. Steven, what time are you guys dropping the tickets? I am going to drop my ticket here. It's 12:18 right now. I am going to put together what I like right now, and I'm going to put it out. It's all of it is going to come out. My boosted slip is going to be a National Tight End Day special. I'm going to take some slightly reserved lines to use the boost on, but it's not going to be so saturated to where you're not going to get any value out of it. I'm going to take the guys that I really like. We've got plenty of guys in here that, are respectable lines. I'm going to drop the ticket here. That's all coming out, all of it, within the next half hour. I'm not going to put anything for early hockey because, I don't like early hockey games. I don't consider this one because it's a 5 o'clock one. I'll put something out for this one. Probably a little bit later. I just want to watch my Patriots play. But as far as early hockey goes, like this one right here, this one right here, I can see myself running like a Kucherov play here. Just because, just got his 1,000th point yesterday. They're facing the rookie goalie over here too. So yeah, I can see myself doing that. So we're going to be patient on the hockey, but I'm getting ready to drop the NFL here shortly. So, all right. I appreciate everybody who tuned in. We're going to be doing a lot more of this on a regular basis. And this is really just to kind of show you, like what all goes into it. I go back and forth and, because all these right here, these are always subject to change. And, you wait to see, who's on the line rushes and stuff like that. But, NFL is pretty set. There's not really any changes per se unless there's an injury involved. But, yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it for the very beginning. And like I said, we're going to be dropping a lot more collabs, with a lot of my mods in here. And even bringing in, like outside sources to, join us, just to kind of get, new and fresh perspectives on, what really goes into, a matchup. And, just why I'm taking a line, at this number and, all sorts of things like that. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, being supportive. And like I said,